Hi everyone, and welcome to Protocol 36, and in today's video we'll be talking about how Alfred Molina Doctor Octopus from Spider-Man 2 could possibly enter the MCU. Now before we get started, if at any point you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate if you could drop a like, as that would really help out the channel. Thank you. Now as we all know that Alfred Molina came out and said that he'll be playing his version of Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, which led many people to theorize how they could possibly happen in Spider-Man No Way Home, also leading to many people, including myself, to worry if this could somehow undermine his sacrifice when he redeemed himself by saving the city. But assuming that that's not going to happen, there are a few ways where they could bring Sam Raimi's Doc Ock into the MCU. Now one of the most popular fan theories is that the fusion reactor could have been a portal to the multiverse, dropping him off into the MCU. Now we know that the fusion reactor in Spider-Man 2 was able to attract metal, specifically metal that are magnetic, and we don't entirely know where the metal went. Once they were sucked in, we all assumed that they were destroyed, but many people think that this could possibly be a gateway to the multiverse. Now, one of the problems with that theory is that the fusion reactor was used as a power source, not a portal towards the multiverse. Now, you could reckon that and say that maybe that was one of the side effects. That wasn't really the point, since Spider-Man 2 made it clear that it's a power source which is used to create renewable energy for the city, and I don't think changing that would make a lot of sense, at least to me, but I could be wrong. One of the other possibilities is that when Otto Octavius was under the river, there might have been a glitch in the Sam Raimi's Spider-Man universe where a random portal showed up, whether that be one of the Doctor Strange portals which the character and other sorcerers in the MCU use throughout, or even something like Into the Spider-Verse where a lot of wormholes came out of nowhere, taking the different spider people from different realities into Miles Morales' universe, which I think is really possible if they really want to go that way. As we didn't really see Otto's body after Spider-Man 2, so they could possibly say that a wormhole somehow appeared and sucked him into the MCU. Since we know that Alfred Molina will play the same version of Doc Ock in Spider-Man No Way Home, I personally don't think he will be a villain or bad guy, since as we know in Spider-Man 2, once again he sacrificed himself, unless he could possibly be playing a different version of Doc Ock that looks like the Sam Raimi universe, but isn't really the same version as we saw in those films. This version of Doc Ock may or may not have beaten Spider-Man in his reality, therefore he wouldn't have redeemed himself and he still would have been a villain. Therefore if he crossed into another dimension and saw another Spider-Man, good chance that he will probably attack him, which could entirely be possible. But since John Watts told Alfred Molina they'll be picking up the moment from the river where Doc Ock has destroyed and drowned the fusion reactor, there's a very good chance that this may very well be the same version as we saw in Spider-Man 2. Now there's also a chance that Alfred Molina could be lying and play a different version of Doc Ock, probably the MCU's version of the character, as he was talking about the role in detail, which he shouldn't be as he is in the NDA, so he can't really talk about the film without getting into serious trouble. But to be honest, there's a part of me where I do believe him, and unless Marvel and Sony are pretty much going to do what the Russo brothers did when it came to Avengers Endgame, where they just flat out lied about the fact that Avengers 4 wouldn't be called Avengers Endgame, but then turns out that when they revealed the title it was in fact Avengers Endgame, they could possibly doing that and just say that this could or could not be a multiverse film. So they could be playing coy with us or just lie until the trailer comes, which is entirely possible, since when it came to Spider-Man Far From Home they kind of teased that it will be a multiverse film, but it turns out it wasn't because it's Mysterio. Mysterio is a character who's known to lie and trick people, so it makes sense. And Spider-Man No Way Home is meant to deal with the identity crisis, so I'm not sure how they're going to tackle both of those huge elements in the film, but we just have to wait and see. It is also worth considering the fact that Jamie Foxx said that he'll be playing a different version of Electro, as he won't be blue this time, which he was in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, indicating the fact that he may be playing a different version of Electro altogether. And if that's the case, and Alfred Molina will be playing his version of Doc Ock, they could be pulling villains from other realities and just put them into the MCU. And if they're going to do that, they would definitely have to include Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. With Andrew Garfield, we don't know which of his villains will show up. Dane DeHaan did say that he won't be in the film, so there is that. The only ones we know that who survived from his films are Green Goblin and Lizard. Rhino we're not really too sure of, though we could definitely assume that he lived, but other than that we're not really too sure what went down in this universe after the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now there were a lot of people speculating that if Alfred Molina's Doc Ock was going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home, does that mean that Spider-Man 3 will get retconned and pretty much erase that movie? Personally, I don't think so, even though Spider-Man 3 isn't really the most popular Spider-Man movie, though it is worth mentioning that it did recently get a lot of love from fans. I don't think that film will get erased. I think that would just be going too far. Now Sam Raimi didn't really like that film, as we know, and if they're going to be using his version of Doc Ock and potentially his version of Spider-Man, I think it's safe to say that John Watts and Sam Sam Raimi did have discussions on how to handle those versions of the character and the universe altogether, and maybe Sam Raimi gave John Watts his blessing to not consider Spider-Man 3, which could be possible. But personally, I don't really think that's the case, as I think it would be wise to just include Spider-Man 3 and just use Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man after the events of Spider-Man 3. So maybe he's married to Mary Jane and probably has children or even a kid, which I would personally love to see, and just to show how much he's grown after the events of the Sam Raimi trilogy. So if that was going to happen, that means that not only will it be multiverse related, it would also have to involve divergent timelines. So a Tobey Maguire that's much older and experienced, but also have a Doc Ock from 2004 would be very confusing, but I somehow hope that they will pull it off. So how I think Doc Ock may enter into the MCU is by having a random wormhole show up, which sucks him into Tom Holland's universe and potentially help him out or even fight against him. Whether or not he will be the main villain of the film, we don't really know, though if I had to guess, I probably don't think so, because it could be a even bigger bad that Tom Holland's Spider-Man may have to face, probably along with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and obviously involving divergent timelines, so taking villains from different realities from different points in time. Another way could be also that Tom Holland could enter Sam Raimi's Spider-Man universe, which is possible, but because Spider-Man No Way Home is Tom Holland's film, I think it's safe to say that the majority of the film will take place in the main MCU reality. However, what about you guys? How do you think Doc Ock could enter the MCU's reality? Do you agree with what I said, or do you think they will do something different? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please like, and want more, subscribe. To begin, Protocol 36.